Hi, I am the efficiency professor. Today, why climate change should never have happened. Firstly, what is climate change? Very simply, there is over 400 billion tons of excess carbon in the atmosphere directly as a result of over 87 million tons of daily fossil fuel emissions. This has caused global warming due to the greater insulation effect of this extra carbon in the atmosphere. More extreme weather, heat waves and floods, the melting of the polar ice, even forest fires are occurring more often all around the world as a result of climate change. What should be happening is that atmospheric carbon should be going into trees and plants and then into the soils to be captured deep in the ground forever. Humans have literally reversed the natural carbon process by mining fossil fuels, burning them for energy, thereby causing these enormous emissions. Remarkably, we do not even need fossil fuels as we have crops which could literally replace fossil fuels use completely. These agro-energy crops have almost no net emissions, are far safer, more profitable and completely sustainable, especially when grown in organic soils. Why then has the fossil fuels industry not transitioned to agro-energy fuels? The answer is in the control of the supply and therefore the price of fossil fuels as a means to manipulate consumer markets for profit. This in turn impacts inflation, causes many conflicts and even wars, and certainly holds governments and consumers hostage to third parties and their profiteering. Chemical fertilizers have taken an equivalent hold over farmers through their soils. Their fields are now so bereft of carbon and soil health that they, only just, work with chemicals. Growing fertilizer prices now make these chemical inputs unaffordable for many farms. This is resulting in increasing decline in crop production and consequential food shortages globally. Simply put, reversal of climate change only comes from the replacement of fossil fuels and associated products from our economies. Remember, fossil fuels come from atmospheric carbon absorbed by plants buried into soils years ago. Replacing old plant-based fossil fuels with new plant-based fuels is obvious and scalable. Millions of farms bring the necessary scale to the soils and agro-energy capacity immediately. Agro-energy is not a new concept, with thousands of farmers already growing multiple fuels over thousands of acres annually, producing millions of tons of crops a year. Merging agro-scale with big energy wealth and markets makes complete economic sense. This would allow sustainable fuel production to expand throughout all energy supply chains, decoupling from the exploitative fossil fuel supplies to mitigate the current energy shortages. Every country should develop their own energy source through their farms, thereby replacing fossil fuels with crops for a far more equitable and sustainable energy supply that they have price and delivery control of. Note that sustainable agro-energy fuels are compatible with current vehicles and technology. This makes for a simple, less invasive and less expensive fuel source transition for taxpayers and households. The lower costs for energy and foods further reducing the current exorbitant inflationary cost pressures everyone is facing. Agro-energy must be aligned with organic soils and carbon farming to be most effective. The production of local biological soils brings non-chemical commerce to farms at a lower cost, and more reliable supply of farm inputs. This decouples farming from global market production costs, therefore reducing energy and food costs for the foreseeable future. Carbon farming requires huge volumes of carbon-rich, biological soil fertilizers, which must be of consistent standards for international markets, an issue that has been a historical pinch point for the growth of non-chemical farming. This quality and capacity gap now has a technology solution developed by Infinity Biological Soils in Australia. Their bioreactor produces optimized, humus-rich, biologically active soil fertilizers of consistent food-grade quality in very large volumes for commercial, non-chemical farming applications. The low-energy bioreactor biological soils production is very quick and comes from a small footprint business that self-funds to scale quickly. All pathogens and weed seeds are eliminated completely. All emissions are captured and repurposed. These qualities enable food waste and manures along with other difficult waste streams to be processed safely. These waste streams are added to additional farm-grown carbon source raw materials to generate the millions of tons of biological soils needed for regenerative carbon farming to become the mainstream commercial farming method of choice to replace chemical farming. Conveniently, the farm-generated carbon resource raw materials localizes biological soil fertilizer production, reducing and stabilizing farm input costs for all farms, rich or poor, as the trade of raw materials for soils results in nearly free biologically active soil fertilizers for all farmers. Carbon farming becomes a huge, natural and low-tech carbon capture solution which simply rebuilds soil's health by applying large volumes of soil organic carbon directly back into the ground exactly as nature intended, again, almost for free. Applying biological soils into the ground complies with carbon credit methodologies that generates very low cost, but very effective, certified or verified carbon credits. These carbon credits do not drag on economic growth but do offer COP26 solutions for governments. Importantly, critical water cycles are also re-established by these biological soils applications, further protecting crop health through topsoil water and deep groundwater resources recovery. Oil, gas and coal companies who are serious about shareholder value must move into this agro-energy sector to transition their companies into long-term sustainability and profitability. The transition is as simple as contracting farmers to grow the energy crops and supplying them with the bioreactor soil center resources to do so. Policymakers, investment decision-makers, influencers, here is where your attention should be. Carbon farming and agro-energy offers a comprehensive, immediate and realistic strategy to reduce climate change and bring inflation under control while building robust rural economies. Carbon farming of agro-energy and biological soils is the future of modern farming and energy. For bioreactor placement and partnerships, please contact Infinity Biological Soils Limited, Australia. www.infinitybiologicalsoils.com. Thanks for watching another Efficiency Professor Media Production 2022.